Now I'd like to give you all a chance to ask any questions that you might have. And then I would just ask you to please identify yourself and pose a question to anybody on the panel. Yes, ma'am.
I'm Penny Starr with CNS News. And I was hoping someone would address a little more in detail secure communities, because I think there's a lot of misinformation out there about it, that it's mandatory, when in truth it's the FBI communicating with ICE, which is in the same agency. But more to the point of how it helps you. And there's critics who say that it'll damage relationships between the people and law enforcement because, for example, in the case of domestic abuse, the woman would be afraid to call, she might get deported. So I was hoping you could address that and then talk about how the program works, helps you do your job as far as illegal immigration.
Okay.
If you don't mind, I could
Please
address that. Secure communities is county, especially in our jail. Our jail is about 1,500 beds. So it's kind of a small jail, and for those of you that don't know, our county is 5,400 square miles, so it's kind of small as well. But I'm kidding. But specific to that, but it is that size. Specific to that, secure communities. In what's built inside of that is you're right. It's what happens is when someone is put into jail, you know, you do their fingerprints. The fingerprints shoot off to FBI under NCIC. It gets ran through Secure Communities, DHS, right after that, and then it gets pushed back down to the local level, and then they decide, Homeland Security decides what they're going to do with it, whether they're going to be held, retained, or et cetera, or deported, or put into a deportation proceeding. When the argument's made that it's going to reduce the trust between law enforcement and the community, that's a disingenuous argument. We use it all the time. As a matter of fact, we don't see any statistics that change anything at all. And the population of Pinal County is about 48% Hispanic, is what we serve. We don't have any issues with it at all. And specifically for the people that are there illegally and call the police, and there's an involvement with us, if they're a victim of crime, they're not ran through the system. There's a system separate and above that that allows them to get special visas and things like that so that they're not deported. We don't even, for example, use your example of a domestic violence. A woman calls, her husband's beating her. We arrest him. She's illegal. He's illegal. He's ran through the system. We know she's illegal. We don't call ICE. That's not why we're there. We're there because of domestic violence. And so it's seamless. It's a non-issue. So I think it's, you know, there's politics involved, obviously, but in the reality of things, it doesn't affect our relationship with the community at all. Does that answer your question, ma'am?
Yes.
Thank you.
The Secure Community Program and the 287G is the only source we have of identifying those that are in custody of the sheriffs in this nation. We have found probably, I would say, 80% of the people that are arrested that comes through our 287G program for committing other crimes give the wrong name. You find that they're wanted in other parts of the country, child molesting, murder, rape, drug trafficking, and it's the only way that we know who we have in our custody is through these two programs. And I can tell you the crime rate in Alamance County, the index crimes has gone down, and I say this, the only thing we're doing different is the 287G program, which we started in 2007.
Anyone else like to? I know everyone on the panel has secure communities except for Sioux County, Iowa. But Sheriff Jenkins?
Just to echo that, we have both in Frederick County 287G and secure communities. And what is really important is that the public understand. I think there's a misperception out there. The public needs to understand this mechanism is only after the arrest for another crime. Again, we're out there enforcing the laws of our respective states. And these processes take place during the booking systems after the arrest. So I think that's important. We don't do this on traffic stops.
Yes.
I'm Rosemary Jenkins with Numbers USA. I'd like to ask all of you, how many of you participate in 287G programs? And maybe somebody could explain sort of what 287G is. how many of you have been denied participation in 287G by ICE, and what kind of cooperation you get from ICE as part of 287G or not as part of 287G?
Well, Alamance County was the second 287G program in our state. We now have 5. We have a wonderful working relationship with ICE. We have 2 ICE agents, federal ICE agents that work in our jail, have offices in our jail that's there 40 hours a week, double checking everything we do. But currently in the state of North Carolina, I think we have 5 287G programs with 100. The rest of the counties are secure community counties. So our whole state is covered by either 287G or secure communities.
When I first took office as sheriff, I wanted to do the 287G program and applied to do that and was denied because my jail was too small. And I understood that. The main reason I wanted it is for the identification, being able to identify individuals that we arrest. So the secured communities that we're doing now has done that for us. But I want to tell a little story about when we first started talking about this in Lee County. And we had a forum one night at one of our centers, and we had a large crowd, and there was some folks from the Hispanic community that was there. And we began to talk about what we were trying to do. And after it was over, I noticed a group of individuals who happened to be Hispanic were waiting to speak to me. And they actually thanked me for what we were trying to do because they knew that it would help make their community safer, and it has. So.
280, go ahead. Thank you. Specific to 287G, that program's very, very useful. We operate 287G in the jail, and we also operate 287G in a task force model. For those of you who don't know, that means out on the street, regular deputies. What's difficult about 287G, with all of the things that it does do well, is it's very, very difficult to use. It's like any other, maybe I'm a little jaded, but it's like any other federal bureaucracy. It's difficult to use. It takes a lot of time. For example, each time that a deputy does a 287G investigation on someone, it takes anywhere from an hour and a half to 2 hours, which is time that they are not doing their regular job. And anecdotally, I don't know what's so difficult about asking someone what their nationality is, and they answer you, and that's the end of it. But no, there's a lot of hoops and layers that you have to jump through to prove that through 287G. I'm not knocking the program. It's a great program. It's just, it's difficult to use, and I would wish that it was streamlined, but it's not. As far as being denied 287G, sometimes 287G is a little hard to use, and it's kind of a denial. Yes, we do have people that are certified in 287G, and does anybody not know what that is? That's a federal certification to do federal investigations on nationality. So, and I'm sorry? Oh. And so anyway, so you're certified and credentialed through the Department of Homeland Security, even though you're a local law enforcement agency. It takes 5 weeks of training to get. For us, we have to go all the way to Glencoe, Georgia to do it. I don't know why it's not somewhere closer, but it's not. And but back to that, yes, it's useful, but it's like anything else, it's difficult to use for what reason, I'm not sure. And back to denial, there's training issues along with anything else in law enforcement. You have to stay constantly trained and constantly certified, and if funding's pooled or the program's being remanaged or rearticulated, then no one's being trained, and so then your certifications fall off the table and you have to be recertified, or they impose quotas upon you and you say you have to do so many a month or so many a quarter, and that's very difficult to do. And so it's got many layers to it, but I mean, overall we're happy with it. It's better than nothing.
And from what you say, and from what I've observed also in speaking with other agencies that use it, the fact that it is not something that can be used very easily makes it much less likely to be used frivolously and without a legitimate law enforcement or public safety use. Okay. Sheriff Jenkins, you have 287G also.
Yes, we do. We are actually the first and still the only county in the state of Maryland that participates with ICE in 287G. And as far as your question about the oversight and supervision, absolutely everything we need to operate the program effectively. ICE does a tremendous job in the supervision. We also have ICE agents that work in our detention facility, like the chief from Pinal County. We have both the task force and the jail models. They're very effective. And what you really need to understand is that either program, Secure Communities, is not as effective as 287G. But under 287G, we are an extension or force multiplier for ICE. We have that training, we have that certification. In effect, counties, for instance, where ICE may not have the resources or manpower, under 287, we can perform certain functions. And again, we do have, we do everything basically that ICE does as far as preparing and serving those detainers. So that's the difference of the two programs. Either one by themselves are good. 287 is more effective, but in conjunction, they work absolutely wonderfully.
Thanks.
Tell us what she asked, how many, raise your hand if you have 287G. So we knew how many? 3, and how many have secure communities?
Well, Sheriff Johnson does too.
And how many have been denied 287G?
I think just, two. Oh, okay.
2006, when I was elected sheriff, just shortly after that, I applied for the 287G program. Was told as we ended the application process that I did not have a serious enough problem to qualify for 287G. To answer your other question about ICE, the local guys that we work with are fantastic. They're super. They would love to help us more than they do. They simply do not have the resources in place to give us any more help than they do, but they do all that they can for us.